Welcome back to the show. I'm here with my friend Keith Sconiers. Today, we're going to have a very cool episode. It's a little bit laid back because I've known Keith since I was back in my college days. But here's a cool thing about Keith. Keith wraps everything he does around purpose. I'm telling you, I've learned a lot about myself by just knowing Keith, not only because of his amazing content, but his heart, man. He puts his heart into everything he does, and especially connections and the people he knows. This guy will take the shirt off his back to help you out with whatever you need. He's always been that guy, and he continues to be that person in the community, especially around Portland, Oregon, but even beyond that. Keith has helped me grow my business. We've always had these amazing conversations on the phone late at night sometimes where we just talk about business, life, relationships. He's had me on his podcast, and it's been an honor to get him on this show. And I cannot wait until Keith gets it together and writes his amazing book, which I know he's working on. But in that, man, I just wanted to share with everyone that I know, my friend Keith. Keith, welcome to the show, my man.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, man. It's good to see you, brother.
Yeah, you too. Absolutely. It's an honor.
Yeah, man. Keith, man, I wanna just go back a little bit in time, and I want to talk about when we first met in that barbershop, PS Styles.
Yeah.
So Keith was a basketball player at Portland State University, and I was a young buck, didn't know what the hell was going on in the world. I think I was a freshman in college, and I think you might have been a junior or senior. And I thought you were the coolest person, man, because you kind of look like Will Smith. And like, I was like, man, this guy is cool. He's a basketball player. He's kind of a big deal. But you had heart, man. You talked to me. You said, what's up? Every time I interacted with you, you were just so cool and kind of treated me like a little brother, man. But go back in time a little bit. What was your experience meeting this young guy and kind of fish out of water? What was it like for you getting to Portland State, man, and playing basketball and really starting your journey there?
Yeah. Thank you for the introduction and bringing that memory back to the surface for me. Also, thank you for saying I look like Will Smith because I appreciate that. You know what I mean? Like when I was growing up, I'm going to age myself a little bit, but when I was growing up, like in like junior high, there used to be like these little chat rooms where this was before social media. Like you couldn't.
Talking about AOL?
No, I don't remember what it was. I don't remember what it was exactly, but there used to be like these 800 numbers that you could dial into, and then you can go from like chat room to chat room and talk to people. This was like social media before we had access to the internet, and so like I'd be on there with my deep voice and I'd be like, yeah, and then they'd be like, so what you look like? And I'd be like, yeah, girl, I look like Will Smith.
I'm telling you, you got his laugh too, man. It's perfect. It's perfect.
That was my pickup line.
It's so good. It's so good.
Oh man,
it's so good. I love it.
But yeah, those were the days, and now we're in a different time. But getting to Portland State was really like a whirlwind, if I can be honest, because I started playing basketball when I was a sophomore in high school. Prior to that, I was constantly getting kicked out of school. I had a 1.3 GPA my freshman year in high school. I wasn't even allowed on campus my freshman year. And so when I happened to be on campus, I met the basketball coach and he was like, hey kid, you be a Division I athlete. And I was like, I don't even know what that was, to be honest with you. I didn't know what it was until I actually became one. And so when I got to Portland State, I was still really trying to figure out who I was as a player. I'm from Fresno, California, so I'm not from the Northwest. I was trying to figure out life in general, like I was just like a fish out of water, just like you. I was like, man, I remember I'm old enough and I'm mature enough now, so I can say this. Like, man, I was low key like kind of crying when I got on the airplane because I'm like, I'm leaving my grandma behind. I'm leaving my family behind, and I'm gonna go and do this thing called Division I basketball. And it's interesting that you remember how I treated you because I don't remember a whole lot about college because for the majority of the time, I would say that I felt really ashamed as an athlete because I was still growing and learning, and I didn't have the roles, or my playing time didn't reflect my work ethic, right? And some of that maybe had to do with experience, right? There was so much for me that was always, I don't know, I wouldn't call it depressing, but it really was in a lot of ways, right? So what it was like, coming to Portland State and being a Division I athlete was life changing, shaping in a lot of ways. So I don't know if that answered your question, but it was definitely, everything was just coming at me so fast, and I would say PS Styles was like a place that anybody could go and actually feel like they were actually back at home. Whether you could, at people who see me, they can see I don't have any hair. So, it wasn't like he was really fading me up there. But, it was always a place to go, and he's such a cool dude. We have the same taste in music, and he's just, first class. So his shop was obviously more than just a shop and a place to get your hair cut. It was a place to build connection and, connect with people that you interfaced with on campus that were maybe athletes or not, like in your scenario. But it was home. It was home. It was home on campus.
Yeah, it really was, man. And I mean, I literally made the basement my shop, my t-shirt shop.
Yeah,
Right? So like I practically lived there, man. I was always hanging out there.
Yep.
And his ability to like just have this energy to attract people, man, and make them feel safe and welcome and like loved and supported. I really always felt that. And like so many of the people that went there were so cool, but you didn't have this energy of like, you didn't really have like a that athlete persona. You were so approachable, man. That's what I remember the most about you, bro. It wasn't even like about like, oh, give me advice on this and that or whatever. It was more like, hey man, good to see you. What you working on? Oh, cool t-shirts, man. Let me get one of those. He was just always supportive. And I remember when I first started doing my little events at the gym, you're always like, yeah, I'm gonna show up, but I can only be there for a little bit because I gotta work or I gotta do this. You kept it always like cool and professional, but I always had such high respect for you, man. Because again, I didn't really know the things you were going through. Obviously, we were all so young and immature, but there was a level of like respecting one another, man. And I appreciated that because at least I felt like a little brother that had support from these guys that everyone loved at Portland State because you were a friggin' basketball player, and I remember Blake and so many other guys that they also had that vibe too of like looking out for you, I think that was my thing too, even in high school. Like I always hung out with the athletes. I wasn't necessarily athletic, but like because of my art, that was always like the communication tool that helped me bridge and make friends, you know what I'm saying? And open up opportunities, But yeah, man, shout out to Patrick Sedaris, my man, PS Styles, which he texted me today, by the way. Anyways, man, so, I want to talk a little bit about what happened after college, because I know you kind of went on and started working, but then you ended up starting a business. And you're the type of person that, again, thinks deeply about not only the people who support you and sort of the mentors that come into your life, but the type of business you started. Because when we sort of reconnected later on, I was neck deep into my printing business as I grew it, and you started your own business, and we always sort of vibed on that. Can you share a little bit about what it was like for you to kind of go in the deep end of starting a business?
Yeah. Well, I would say that it started with my athletic journey, right? So when I left Portland State, I was committed to being successful. I felt like I had given my heart to the game, and Portland State isn't necessarily a place that you go if you're looking to continue to develop as a player, right? Because most coaches that are coming in to prove that they can win and go, right? And so I would attribute my experience there to that, playing for 3 different coaches in 4 seasons, all of those things. But when I left college, that wasn't my mindset. My mindset was like, look, man, I just gave basketball everything that I could for the past several years, and I didn't necessarily get the ROI. So I'm going to figure out how to be successful. And I would say that I succeeded. I successfully launched the worst career campaign in world history. Right?
Don't
17
we all?
jobs
But
in
yeah,
10 years, you know,
yeah, yeah.
being told that I shouldn't be in sales, being fired, being on the verge of
Right.
bankruptcy for a decade, sleeping on the floor of an apartment that had no bed, driving a $500 car that I spent $500 too much for, getting my car towed because I couldn't afford to get my tags paid for,
Mm,
and having to do the walk of shame with my belongings from the car back to my apartment that had no bed, right? My journey didn't necessarily start with, oh man, I'm going to graduate from college and I'm going to go start a business. Well, it really
mhm,
started with me carrying a lot of baggage around not feeling good enough, not being worthy, and trying to perform my way into feeling like I was good enough. Which, for anybody that's listening in right now, like there's nothing that you can do, there's nothing that you can achieve to get to a point to where you feel like you're good enough.
mm,
That is a lesson that I had to learn the hard way over the course of a decade, if not more than that. So 17 jobs in 10 years. My 16th job happened to be the fifth largest credit card processing company in the country. I loved it and hated it, right? Like I loved getting the opportunity to serve other business owners and help them and protect them from scrupulous providers or unscrupulous. I don't know the word. I'm using words on here that I shouldn't be using, but unscrupulous
right.
providers, people who are dishonest, who are looking to take advantage of the business owner and sign them up and jack rates and put them in bad contracts. That's what I loved. I learned about myself that I really loved being in that position to fight for other people, fight for business owners. So that's why I ended up working at that company for 2.5 years, which was really the second longest tenure I had on any of the jobs that I had over the course of that decade.
Mm,
One day, though, I sat across the table from a restaurant owner who had contracted with my company for a point of sale system that my company bought. So he was our new customer. They sent me into his restaurant, a Thai restaurant, to convert him to our payment processing. And I sat across the table from him and he was extremely frustrated with my employer. He said, "Why don't they help me? Why am I spending all this money but nobody trains me?"
mm,
In his best English, right? That he
mhm,
could. I didn't understand every word that he said, but I felt every word that he
mm,
said. And as he was speaking, I made a commitment that I was going to go back to the office and advocate for him. And I went back to the office, which was my home office, and I sent a couple emails to my manager and to the heads of departments that we need to figure out a way to solve this problem for this customer. And they basically told me that there's nothing to do here. And so that
mm.
afternoon, I wrote my resignation letter,
Wow.
right? And I went from there to Concordia University, which was my 17th job, and I loved it. I was recruiting people to help them get their MBA or their MAT so they could be a teacher.
Mm,
I loved working with people one on one to figure out who they were, what their dreams were, and how did teaching or getting their MBA, how was that going to help them get to where they wanted to go?
mhm,
What I didn't necessarily vibe with was nonprofit is extremely slow paced, and that's just not me, right? Like sitting in an office behind a desk 40, 50 hours a week inside a Salesforce is not my purpose.
right.
Right. And so once I realized that fact about where I was working at, I told my manager, hey, we need to get someone else in this seat because there's somebody else that's going to appreciate this job more than me. Because I started to
Mm,
feel like taking a paycheck from a nonprofit school it felt like stealing to me. It felt like there would be somebody else that would appreciate this job more. I had no savings, but I knew that I could not stay there and continue to work in an environment where I was not 100% sold on where I was working. And so that is what actually inspired me to leave to start PaySuite, which is my payment consulting company that I've run for 7.5 years now.
that's crazy, man. I love this sort of in the slowest format, really understanding what you don't want to do
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what you actually are meant for or sort of
Mm-hmm.
wanting to do.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of experiences,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of bad experience, good experience, all that good stuff. So tell me a little bit about PaySuite, man, because it's obviously this is a business that you've stuck with now
Mm-hmm.
and you've grown it slowly. And I remember a time, man, that was so, I mean, again, your humility is so beautiful, man. But I remember when you told me, and this resonated with me, that you were doing Uber on the low when you were sort of getting things going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And while you were doing that, you were working your business at night and just like, building those two things up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of like it takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of courage to be like, no, I'm going to do whatever it takes, all this other
Mm-hmm.
stuff to
Mm-hmm.
pay my bills, make sure I'm good. But while I build this thing and that I believe in, but why PaySuite? Because obviously you now have like the background
Mm-hmm.
of the importance of running, processing, cards, all that
Yeah.
stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but also this other background of like really helping people one-on-one, understanding
Mm-hmm.
their needs and like sort of tailoring what that looks like for each individual. But tell me a little bit about that. Like what took you into what made you really want to go into that world like further?
Mm-hmm.
And why stick with it this long?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say that the reasons for why I went in that direction and why I stuck with it are rooted in my childhood. So
Mm,
prior to me being born, my mom and my dad were in the real estate business. My dad would build houses. So he's always been self-employed, always worked for himself. I've never seen my dad work a corporate job at all, not even part-time. My
wow.
mom, she worked in the TGI Fridays. So she was a cook and then she worked in a high-end restaurant as a cook. And then she got in the real estate business. So, but from a very young age, I would say that my mom left corporate when I was like 7 or 8 years old. And one of my
Mm,
earliest memories actually of my mother was us waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go throw newspapers
mm,
and phone books in Fresno,
mhm.
California, which is not one of the safest cities in the country. Right.
No.
I remember getting up and in the seventh grade. No, I'm not in the seventh grade. I'm 6 or 7 years old. Actually, I'm more like, I don't know what grade I am, but I remember that
Yeah.
morning waking up and thinking it's still dark. I remember thinking
Why am
like
I
it's still
up?
dark. Like, why did I sign up to go do this with my mom? Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing? And
Wow.
it didn't really resonate with me until much later in life when I was on that journey of trying to like understanding like why is she getting up at before the sun comes up to go throw newspapers and phone books, and because she was trying to get her real estate business off the ground. And even though
Mm,
my stepdad worked full time, she was like there were still other things that they needed to accomplish financially, and she was willing to do whatever it took to make sure that she was successful. And so my mom was solopreneur, my dad was a solopreneur, and then all of their clients and people that they worked with happened to be either real estate investors or business people. Everyone else in on my dad's side of the family, they either they also did real estate in terms of like contracting work or worked on cars, right? And so all of these people that I was around growing up, and then also being an at-risk kid, because my dad battled addiction and
mm,
incarceration. Many of the people that I was surrounded by happened to be people that were entrepreneurs. And so I have this affinity growing up with entrepreneurs, right? And so later on in life, when I saw how business owners looked at me when I would walk in and say, "Hey, I work for a credit card processing company," when I saw how they felt about the industry, that's when it clicked for me that I could actually help them out. I could actually look after the people that looked after me when I was getting kicked out of school, when my dad was leaving me home days at a time because he was battling addiction, or people that I spent time with when he was actually incarcerated, right? And so those were the motivations I would say for why I was attracted to it. But when I left Concordia, I kind of had a more broader business approach to serving business owners. But I quickly realized that I needed to have a very concise way of helping because I needed to make money. I needed to build a business. because I had no money when I left Concordia. I didn't have any money. And so I, like you, as you mentioned, like I had 3, 4 side hustles. I was doing Uber and Lyft at the same time. I mean, talking about having both apps up. Like who we going with today? You know what I mean? Like which one of y'all gonna get the business? Which one of y'all gonna give me the business today? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I had them both up, and I would work all day prospecting, looking for clients, even though I wasn't necessarily like, I always knew that I didn't want to only do credit card processing. Like I don't have any, I understand the industry. I understand the numbers. I understand how the business works. I understand a lot of things about the business. And so that's why I took the consultative approach to building a payment consulting company, of helping companies shop and figure out which solution was right for them instead of selling them on one company. I essentially just focused that first 2 years on driving Uber Lyft at night with a hoodie on and a hat and some glasses at times, looking like I was in a costume because I know so many people here. I was ashamed that I had to do it.
Mm.
Working on the business. So that means building websites, writing blogs. I wrote a book called The Truth About Accepting Credit Cards, which is now called The Entrepreneur's Guide to Payments, which I'm actually building a course for accountants, CPAs, and bookkeepers to help them understand how to find these different fees in their client's business so they can recapture it and help their clients be more profitable. So I basically worked around the clock for 2 years. I worked 12 to 18 hours a day for 2 years, either driving Uber or Lyft at night when it wasn't prime time, building websites, adjusting. I had to learn how to do it too, right? So I had to learn how. I'd watch videos at night of like, okay, so here's how you put the header together, and here's how like all of these things, because I knew I wanted to have something that looked professional, but I didn't have $1,000 or
The money.
$2,000 to just pay somebody else to do it. I was literally working. I felt like I wanted to throw up for 2 years. Not only because like I was just tired, but then I was also like, this is no dig on like Uber, Lyft, or side hustles. Like I was more qualified than that,
100%.
right? And so
Yeah.
I had to pay the price in so many different ways just to get to the point to where I could pay my bills and put myself on payroll.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you were able to get there and
Yeah,
start growing this company,
yeah,
which I'm so proud of you for, man.
yeah. And I think to answer your question in terms of why did I stay with it and why I have continued to stay with it is because payment processing is top 5 expense for every business owner, no matter what industry. And in fact, for many, it's top 2. Right. And it's so important to the cash flow in the business. And so when I think about the work that I do on the coaching side of helping business owners with their business, it's still really important. It's not the only thing that I look at, though. And we're growing our team to have other experts that can continue to do that work and watch that piece for a business owner while we do other things for them in our business through my coaching company.
Yeah. I love that, man. But meanwhile, as you started to grow the business, as you got more involved, kind of got it off the ground, I start seeing you around, man, everywhere. All the networking opportunities, all the speaking, you started to really make a name for yourself.
Yeah.
Also sharing your story. And how has that impacted? Because I know it impacted my life quite a bit, getting up in front of people and speaking. For me, it attracted people to want to work with me to some degree, right? Not all the time, but it sort of started building my brand, what I call like your personal authority, if you will, credibility. How has that helped you?
That's a good question. I haven't thought of it in terms of how it helps me, if I can be honest. The reason why I do it is because when I was in that apartment with no bed, I promised that if God ever helped me get off the floor, that I would help other people get off the floor. And so I don't speak because I'm actually an introvert. Like people don't know that. Like I'm actually an introvert. Like being around people actually drains me. And so going to networking events or speaking or anything like that, like it's not something that I look forward to, right? But I do it because it's a promise that I made, And so I promised that if I ever got off the floor, that I would do everything I could to help other people get off the floor, And sometimes for people, like that's actually reality, but for other people, it's not. It's like they are already millionaires, but their marriage is not what they would like it to be, right? They're
Mm,
already successful on paper, but they don't actually feel worthy, you know,
mm,
or it's a lot of different things. And so, but I would say that it has helped me in the way of like building new relationships and opening doors in ways that owning a payments business can't, right? Like nobody really
mm.
wants payments is like up there with like the dentist. Like nobody wants to see you. It's like it's up there.
Yeah.
It's like it's up
Yes.
there with like it's up there with like having your prostate checked. It's like
That's
you
so
know
good. I mean,
yeah,
you're right. You're right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so yeah, from that standpoint though, it's like it has helped me expand my reach, build new relationships. Actually, it's actually helped me currently. Like we're in the process of signing on the payment side of things. One of the largest clients we've ever signed, and it wasn't because I came in as a payments person. I came in through a real estate door, which we have a lot of relationships in, and so it's helped me build relationships. I would say that for sure, and it's helped me keep the promise that means a lot to me, which to me is priceless.
That's beautiful, man. Keith, I know you talk about this a lot. I mean, you have a podcast all around this where you interview a lot of different types of people. But what does purpose mean to you?
Purpose to me is understanding who you are, why you're here, what your contribution is to the world, and how to live in a way that is 100% authentic. That is what, and then also having a like clear understanding of the direction and the journey and the path that you're supposed to be on. Years ago, though, I started building an acronym for purpose, right? Which P stands for principles. First and foremost, as an individual, no matter who you are, what are the values and principles that you're going to live your life by every single day?
Mm,
The reason why that's so important to me, and to be in all honestly, I don't know if I can actually give you true words as to what it means to me because it's so important to my story, right? When I think about why my dad battled incarceration and addiction and mental health issues, is because when things went bad in the real estate business, someone in his network said, "Hey, you know what? You don't have to worry about making money in real estate. Why don't you just come over here and do what I'm doing to make money?" Which was, he was moving cocaine, right? And so that's how my dad got tapped into that community, right? Was because someone in his community didn't have the right principles and values that he wanted to live his life by. And he wasn't clear about that up front, right? And so principles is everything. Unique capabilities, uniqueness is what the U stands for. Everyone that's listening in right now is wired for something specific. We have talents and gifts that make us tremendously valuable. But as soon as we started to walk, we were reminded how we should be something different than what we actually are. And so coming back to like, what is it that makes you unique is really important because if you're not doing, and the research is out, Gallup has done research. That's the company behind Strength Finders. Is like, if you're not doing what you want to do or how you're wired to live and operate on a daily basis, you're not going to be happy. It doesn't matter how much money you make, doesn't matter what your title is, doesn't matter what, how the people at work treat you. You're not going to be happy because you're not operating by design, right? You're operating by desire, which doesn't
mm.
always equal fulfillment, right? And so the R in purpose is for relationships. Like, why do you do what you do? Who wins when you win? Who loses when you lose? Right? Not only personally, but professionally. Right? Oftentimes we think, oh yeah, I got my why, I got my baby, my kid, and all that. And it's like, yep, I get it. Totally, 100%. I do anything, right? I do anything. But am I willing to change the way I live? I die for my kids. Are you willing to change how you live for your kids? Because that's important. Um, but also like when I think about relationships, it's like, why do I do what I do professionally? Well, who do I want to serve? Athletes, entrepreneurs, at-risk youth. Why? I got a huge story about being an athlete and being lost as an athlete. I have a tremendous story around entrepreneurship, right? My family are all entrepreneurs. I've also been an entrepreneur. My journey in entrepreneurship almost cost me my marriage, though. So, like, how can I use my story and my experiences there to help entrepreneurs not only be, successful in their business, but successful at home, right? And then at-risk youth, right? I was an at-risk kid. I was at the drug house with my dad at 3 o'clock in the morning, when I shouldn't have been. I had been left at home as a kid in the 6th or 7th grade and not know where my parent was. And so those are all the relationships that I want to have an impact on. Yes, my family, but also professionally, like, who do I want my work to have the greatest impact on? P is for profession. So when you think about your principles, your unique capabilities, your relationships, what sits at the intersection that would allow you to honor those to the highest degree? I found that by knowing those things, that's what allowed me to stay in the credit card business. Because prior to me knowing those things, credit card business drove me crazy. I did not have any interest in this business, which is why I left the company I was working at, you know. But knowing those things allow me to view the work that I do through my identity and what's important to me versus looking at it for just what the job is on paper. How does this profession influence the people that I want my greatest work to have the impact on? Right?
Mm.
That's profession. So what profession sits at the intersection? O is for outcomes. We all have goals. We all have bills and we all have things that we would like to do personally with our family and with our relationships, but we have to have a clear understanding of what those goals are. If you want to if you want to travel, right? There's certain jobs you cannot take because it just doesn't allow it, right? My wife is in the beauty business. Whenever we want to travel, she has to like reschedule clients and all these different things, and it's like, I'm looking at that like we're gonna have to make some changes if we want to be in Nashville, and then we want to be in Texas, and then we want to go to Florida, and then we want to make it to the family, Thanksgiving powwow every year. Like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to do the beauty business long term. Like, I don't know,
Mhm.
but outcomes, like, what are your goals? What do you really want out of life? And how does that also impact the profession and the relationships and your unique capabilities and your principles? Like, all these things are a part of a bigger story. And that's why the S in purpose is story. What are the stories you're believing about who you are, how you're made, what's important, what your value is to the world and the marketplace? What are the stories that you need to let go of? Because every single one of us, are you the victor in your story, or are you the victim?
Mm.
The story of how you grew up, are you looking at that from the vantage point of being a victim or a victor? Did that happen and you've now overcome that, and now you're going to live your life serving other people who have gone through what you've gone through? Or are you still in the spot where you want someone to acknowledge the fact that you were a victim?
Yeah.
Like, yes, I get it. Everything that we've gone through, that especially as a kid, I experienced every type of abuse before I got to high school: mental, physical, sexual, all of it. But am I going to look at that continually as I'm a victim? Or am I going to say, you know what? There's some other at risk kids out there in the world who probably also lost their virginity to a drug addict because they were encouraged to do so, right? Unprotected, right? Like, are there's also some kids who probably, had people using drugs in their face. Am I going to continue to like sulk about that, or am I going to go do something about it? Well, as a victor, the victor says, yes, that happened. It wasn't my fault, but it's my responsibility. So that's the story that I'm going to live with.
Mm.
And then the E in purpose stands for execution, because we can sit on podcasts and we can write things down and we can like get on social media and pound the keyboard about what we say we stand for. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is what happens when we get off this podcast today. Do we go out and move the needle in the direction that we say we want it to go? Or do we get distracted with shiny objects and not execute on why we believe we're here? And that, to me, is what purpose stands for. And I believe that each and every one of those areas is a journey that we have to go on. And it's one that will never end. I have not arrived. I am not done yet. And I won't know when I'm done because I'm not in charge of that. Right. But I believe that with the proper mindset, we can approach those with the right tenacity and patience to grow and continue to be who we need to be to move our life and our community forward.
So powerful, man. I'm just soaking that in. That was probably the best acronym on earth about purpose. That was so good. I'm not even lying. That was so good. I love that, man. I touched on my purpose in my book a little bit, and I've always viewed it as my compass, my internal compass, and I know other people kind of view it that way. And I guess I look at it like it's your compass through hard times to get you to good times, but the purpose is to feel both so you can understand your value, your worth, your all these things to make sense of your life as it happens for you, right? And that's the flip. At one point, this is happening to me because we all have felt that. And then there's a flip that happens when you really understand there's something greater than you at play here, and it's happening for you. And that happens when, like, oh man, I dodged that bullet, you know what I'm saying? It's like, no, you didn't dodge it. It just wasn't meant for you.
Right.
So, something greater was like, all right, but the more you tune into that compass, the more you start to really make better decisions because you start to see what is for you and what's not for you and what's meant for you and what's not, you know what I mean? With the acceptance of there's something greater at play here that I don't really fully understand, and I'm okay with that. I'm good with that now, So I love what you said, man, because I feel like that adds so much more to what I believe in and how people see themselves in purpose. I love that because everything you described isn't outside of you. That's what I love about your description is that it really is an internal process. And however you develop your own understanding of your purpose, that's the thing. That's what you want, right? It's not my understanding or your understanding or whoever, but it's like life will help you understand it if you just tune in, tune into yourself. I love that, man. So that's so beautifully put. Again, I can't wait to read deeply about all of these components in your book. But tell me, man, what's next? What are you working on now? What's next? What are you planning for 2025? What are your visions like for what's happening?
Yeah. So for 5 years, I've actually been writing curriculum to help people in a deeper way. That's something that I recognized really 2 years into building PaySuite was that, yes, I was helping companies and still am helping companies put a significant amount of money back on their balance sheet and saving them money. But I also see things and feel things and hear things when I'm with an entrepreneur that are far more important to them as it relates to changes that they need to make either personally or professionally in their business. And so that's why I actually started building Catalyst Training and Development to be the coaching and consulting business that I would continue to move forward with and grow. And so that's really what's on deck right now is me continuing to launch and work with clients on that side, which is, we work with them on business coaching. We do work with them with their business technology, because as we figure out what people want, who they are and what their strengths are and where they want to take their business, we still evaluate their business technology, and some of the PaySuite stuff some of those tools can be used there and some of them not. And then also the business consulting piece. So just helping them actually grow the business as well, beyond just, hey, let's come in and save you money. So that's really my focus. And then really growing a team, because I'm at a point now where I really can't do it alone anymore. So there's that phase 2. I think for any of the listeners that are familiar with the cash flow quadrant, or they're familiar with Robert Kiyosaki, who's really popular with entrepreneurs, he talks about the cash flow quadrant. And he talks about, there's 4 ways that people make money. You make money as an employee, as a self-employed person, as a business owner, and as an investor. And sometimes people say, well, I'm self-employed, like I'm a business owner. No, yeah, on paper, yes, but really what you are is you own a job. And that's fantastic. I mean, I've owned a job for 7 years. It's been the best job I have ever had, because when my family has really needed me to be there, I've been able to show up and all of those things. But, as a business owner, it's like you actually have people who you can, as a team, can help shoulder the load. Right. And I don't necessarily have that in place right now, which is totally fine. I've been in a great place for years now to really be able to have the time to slow down and write curriculum and build the next, iteration of Catalyst and the things that I really want to do, and speak and do podcasts and things like that. But now it's about the transition from being a self-employed person to a business owner, and the values are different. The attitude is different. The language is different. The mentality is different. Many people want to go from being an employee to, they want things that their values can't support. I want freedom. I want flexibility. I want to travel. I want to make $100,000 a year. It's like, well, okay, cool. That's great. But how is your work ethic? How are you at building relationships? How are you at delegating? How are you at managing? How are you at creating systems and processes? Like, all of those things are what business owners think about and have the capacity to execute on. Those are things that we need to learn as solopreneurs and as employees, if we ever want to get to the point where we can do the things that business owners do, like travel, like earn multiple 6 figures plus, like being able to contribute to charities in a meaningful way, economically and with time. Right. And so for me, that's really what I am really focused on, is actually growing into the kind of person that can support a business that has 10 employees, support a business that has 50 employees. Those are things that aren't external decisions that I have to make. They're internal things that I have to grow into, and values that I have to embrace, and aspects of me that just, quite frankly, have to mature.
So well said, man. I love that. And I think there's no part of me that believes you can't do this, because the craziest part about it, man, is how in tune you are with yourself. Like, it's what I love about you. That's what I've always loved about you and admired about you, man. And it's one thing I always remind myself of just like, man, listen in, tune into yourself, tune into your purpose, know your uniqueness, know your story, know all these components, and have an idea of what you want to do next. But then again, it's not what's next that matters. It's who I become that helps what's next sort of unfold. And if there's one thing that I feel like I've always really admired you for, man, is when I call you, when we text, when we call, it's that flicker, that reminder of like, okay, I got to elevate, not like immediately or anything like that, but it's like, what am I thinking through to become? How do I become the next version of me? And I'm so glad, because the question was really about, who do you become next? Not necessarily what's next for you, right? Because again, it's kind of back to that purpose. But I love that you answered that so well and so rightfully, man. Brother, I appreciate your time today. I know you're a busy, busy guy. So you're getting out there, doing your thing, helping people out. I put on the link here. They can visit you, they can contact you, they can reach out to you, get the support they need. People out there, entrepreneurs, especially around pay suites, all that good stuff, man. You're so valuable when it comes to that stuff, because you help me understand those kinds of things long time ago when I owned my apparel printing shop. I'm very grateful for that. But other than that, man, thank you for coming on the show today. I appreciate you, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
I can't say bye yet. I just have to acknowledge you, you know.
Of course, brother.
I can't tell you how many people I talk to who say they either want to write a book or they want to do something in business. Like, I'm always thinking of like, how can I need to get them in front of Hussein, because you're one of the very few people that I would say you're also very in tune, and you're also very courageous, right? Like, there's been times where you and I have talked and I have been like, ooh, like I need to grow, I need to grow. Like I need to call. Yeah. And you're great at keeping your phone on silent, because you probably don't be seeing how I be trying to hit you up sometimes, because it goes straight to voicemail. But I'm like, man, I need to talk to Hussein right now, because like, you're very attuned. You've been through the entrepreneur's journey, right? And you know what questions to ask to help people like myself. I'm always the person asked, because I look at people through the lens of purpose too. So the questions that I ask myself, I think about and evaluate other people and try to help understand them through that lens. But like, you're also that person for me.
Thank you, man.
Like, I know that when I talk with you, you're going to ask me something that's going to actually help me go deep, because I don't often get that, because I'm usually on the other side driving the conversation and going deep with other people. And so I just want to acknowledge you and just say thank you. And for anybody that is thinking about writing a book, thinking about doing anything with their life, like, you need to talk to Hussein. Because
Keith, man,
he's a real deal. So
appreciate you, man. I love this. I'm grateful for our friendship and our brotherhood. It's just been awesome man, we've known each other now for almost 20 years.
20 years. Like, it's 20 years.
Like,
yeah.
I can't even, it's hard to put
it's 20
anything to that, except for just deep gratitude for how long we've known each other, how much we've seen each other grow, how much we've supported each other. It's definitely both ways, man. I appreciate you so much. I'm happy for you. I'm grateful that the success that you are receiving now, I know, didn't come easy, and it is well deserved and well earned, my friend. And I know there's so much more to come in this beautiful life that we have. And I hope we can kick it another 20, hopefully another 40, and we'll do more of these as we get older. And I'm excited to keep sharing this journey alongside you, man. So thank you for coming on today, brother. I appreciate you.
You too. Take care.
My man.